My name is Tyler, and trying to replicate the color from movies is difficult, daunting, and exciting. Now, there are many different ways to replicate certain looks in movies, but for the everyday person who maybe isn't as skilled at color grading or just wants to learn some new tricks, I'm here for you. Now, what I'm going to be talking about today is a DCTL by mononodes.com called Utility DCTLs, and then a perfect skin indicator LUT. And that's on another website. I can't remember the name right now, but I'm going to put both links in the description. And this has helped me replicate the looks of certain movies. And while you're not wanting to use it all the time to replicate movies, once you start using it, you start knowing what colors look good in movies, what saturation levels, all of these kind of little things that help you out. What I'm going to be doing is basically matching a shot from Hereditary just for educational purposes. And it's one of my favorite shots in the movie. And I have another shot of myself, and I haven't color graded it or anything like that. There's a film emulation on there called Filmbox. That's it right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump in here. We're going to take a look at what I can do and what you will hopefully like. Okay, so we are in DaVinci Resolve. Here's the two shots we're looking at, one from Hereditary, one from me. And what we're going to look at first is we're going to get out of this mode. We're going to look at the gallery, and we're going to check exposure on the shot that we want to match, right? So this is the exposure level. And how I did this was I have a utility right here by mononodes, and this shows you the actual heat zones. So essentially it's a lot like the L zone. It's not similar to false color, but it's replicating similar ingredients from the L zone, but not exactly. So we have two shots, right? We notice that mine is a lot brighter. This one's a lot lower, right? And this is the effect right here. We have the exposure heat map on, right? And so what we can do right now is we can take a look at this image, and we go to our exposure node and go to global adjustments, and then we can bring this down right here to a point that we like. Okay, so that looks pretty close to matching the exposure levels. And what we're going to do now, here's a little neat thing, is we're going to take a look at our saturation levels. So we look right here, and these are our saturation levels. Green is typically where you want to be on saturation, just depending on the brightness, because saturation does change on how bright it is, the image. So for this image, the saturation is green to light green to dark green, more in the shadows, and then to blue, right? And then we can take a look at my image, and we can check the saturation by just turning on the saturation heat map. And we can see that my image is a little bit more saturated than the image from Hereditary. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn down the saturation. You can do this many different ways. I have another DCTL I use for saturation as subtractive saturation, but you can figure it out. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the saturation, and then we're going to turn this saturation down. Okay, that seems pretty good. Let's check it out. Yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of like yellow dot in there, but I'm not too worried about that in terms of like the next level of saturation, right? Is like yellow, red, and then you can add more saturation and it gets that dark red that's like way too saturated. So if you look at the image, you're like, wow, that is not good. Okay, so we'll turn it back down the saturation. We'll turn on utility. We'll bring back down the saturation to the point that we like. I think that is good right there. We'll turn this off. We'll take a look at the original image. And yeah, we're getting a little bit closer, right? So the next thing that we can do is there's also on the utility, there's a skin tone indicator right here. And let's see. So there's a skin indicator and it shows purple, right? But obviously with balancing the image, say you want to balance the image, right? And that shows yellow, green. Yellow is typically the skin tone line, but some skin shifts green or more magenta, etc. So this is a great tool just for general skin tones, but in my opinion, sometimes it's not perfect enough. And that's when we can go to the perfect skin indicator, right? So for now, I am going to turn off this utility, and then let's take a look at the perfect skin indicator, right? I call it rainbow for some reason because it has a rainbow color look to it. So now we see the colors, got orange, green, purple. We're kind of a little bit more dynamic as a skin tone indicator. And what we can do is we go back to the gallery and we can go to the still that we grabbed for the skin indicator, and we can take a look at both of these images, right? This one's obviously green, purple, orange lips, slight orange nose. So I can go to my balance node. And with this balance node, all I'm doing is to balance it photometrically is I basically will take this node, right click, go to gamma, and then go to linear, right? And so now it's in linear, and then I'll make sure my Lumix mix is 0, and then the gain is the only wheel that I'm touching with this, and this kind of replaces the lift gamma gain and kind of combines them together in this very smooth photometric way. Just try it out. Okay, so we're going to be moving the gain around, right, to a point that we like. And as I'm moving this around, I'm kind of thinking, where do I want to be exactly? Because there's a little bit of orange, right? So maybe like right there, right? So I'll turn this off. I go to my gallery, I go to the original image, and we're kind of getting pretty close there. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my utility and look at the saturation again. And let's take a look at that saturation because it might have changed whenever I was moving around the gain wheel for balancing the image. So look at the saturation, it's actually down. So what I can do is go back to my saturation and I can decide if I want subtractive saturation or regular saturation. Let's go subtractive. Let's bring that up to a point right here. We could turn that off and then go back to the original image. And we're honestly getting pretty darn close just by doing that. And if you want to double check, you can always go to your utility and go to skin tone indicator with that yellow, green, and magenta. And then you can go to your gallery, wherever you save your stills, and look at both the images side by side. And now you can kind of see how closely it's matching in terms of skin. Now, what I like to use this for is I will pick some of my favorite movies and basically start looking at the elements of color and saturation in these images. And once I start doing enough with enough different movies, I can start realizing what colors do what saturations levels need to be this. And instead of, using these images all the time as a reference, I can kind of just play around and do it myself. Be like, oh, okay, I know the skin needs to be green with a little bit of orange and purple. It starts kind of flowing in this weird way where you start getting excited about actually color grading and getting things actually right. So that's the image. Let's turn off the skin indicator. Let's turn off that, right? And we can look at this image large. We can see my image and then hereditary. My image, hereditary. I mean, honestly, your color grading is never going to be like perfect just like the movie because they're using a different camera, they're using more expensive lenses, all that kind of stuff. But with these tools, I think it's going to get you a little bit closer. So hopefully you learned something today, but I hope you have a great day. Go color grade, go film something, go have fun, like and subscribe, of course, and I'll see you next time. Bye.